Mics are live.
Oh,
Plaquemine Parish Council, March the 23rd, 2023 meeting is now called to order at 4:43. We'll have roll call.
It's switched.
Can I get a verbal yes? Let the record reflect that all 9 council members are present. We'll move to item 4.
Status report by the parish president. Holidays.
Last one. You're good.
okay. Last couple, 2 or 3 weeks, been kind of quite busy running around all up towards Shreveport. Spent some time, Miss McCarty and I, with the Police Jury Association, which was, it's good. I'd like to see more of us attend that next year. Next year, it's going to be in Lake Charles. I don't know exactly what date, but we'll be more engaged with the group and, get the reservations up and get us up there. A lot of good things going on. I mean, it's different meetings, all different aspects of government and all. And I'm sure some of y'all attended those meetings in the past. Basically, we just kind of focused on this year because it was just the three of us, John, Patty, and myself, focused on 2 of the meetings that I was really most concerned with is getting more knowledge on the grants that we can potentially get here from the state into the parish now. One of a good reason, a main reason, met a lady by the name of we had it scheduled up. Miss Wesley, what's her last name? Johnson. Miss Wesley Johnson. She's an adjudication attorney. She handles the properties that have been adjudicated through tax sales, through, I guess, road home, and just throughout the history of Plaquemines Parish. We might have 1,000, 1,500 properties, quite a few properties that, because they're under the parish's rolls, there are no monies being generated. So what we're going to be doing, working with her, she has a process on how, when she'll advertise the properties. It's a fee of $1,000 that if you want to bid on that property, and what the $1,000 does, that does the research to get the title clear. So with talking with her, we're going to be working throughout, in the near future to get all these properties back on the rolls and start creating more revenues for the parish there. Just this week, John, Shanta, and myself, we've been up in D.C. It was with PACE. It's parish presidents. It's presidents advocating for the coastal restoration and all. We were up there. It's with Go Mesa. Go Mesa is an oil and gas revenue where we get about 1.9, maybe $2 million a year. They're changing it to shores, which is incorporating wind, which is also going to be incorporating states up the East Coast and states on the West Coast, like California. So there's leases out there on these wind farms. So as they're creating revenue, we're also going to be able to increase our revenues here. So we possibly, I guess, when they eliminate, I'm going to let John explain that to us here real quick.
So currently, right now with Go Mesa, we get 37.5% that's capped at $500 million. 12.5% goes to the interior. The other 50% goes into the general treasury. So we can only earn up to $375 million. When you look at the total production of the offshore leases, that's less than 5%. Which usually gives us about $1.9 to $2 million a year on average over the life of Go Mesa. By removing the cap, we would almost surely, we right now, Shell just came online with a new well. We figure within the next year to year and a half, they're gonna hit the cap and it's gonna blow wide open. So the two acts that are in right now, the RISE Act, and the TAP, is to eliminate that cap, which will give us more. We really want 50% of the money. I don't know if we'll get that. Okay, so we want that 50%, but we also want to have the WIN leases included. Just retroactive, if they go back and they add the WIN leases to that, give you an example, New York will receive $1.5 billion. North Carolina, South Carolina will receive over, I think it's 150 million. And then California has 200 million. That's based on the formula that's out there right now and the leases that are in existence. So if this law passes, and we had a team of 77 people up there, we had teams of 4 and 5 people hitting, we did not hit the Louisiana delegation because they're all on board. We visited other coastal delegations to have them included into the WIN and also be part of the, not so much the Go Mesa in our area, but the Go Mesa in their area, if they choose to be. So some states like California, North Carolina, New York, they don't have offshore drilling. So they would only get their lease sales from the WIN. So it's a real positive thing. HR 1, if that one gets passed, that's going to eliminate the cap. So that's the strongest message that we sent out there this week.
And John, can we get, I mean, you're saying HR 1, but can we get some kind of report sent to the councilman so we can
Sure.
better understand?
I'll send you our packet from the Shores, the informational packet that we have that explains everything, just as we explained to each one of the congressional staffs that we visited with.
And then, Mr. LaFrance, we've got a group coming in from, on the elevations, with Ironton, West Point, Lahash, and Braithwaite. So it's going to be about the third week of April. It's going to have to be in two separate days right there. It's going to be like from 3:30 to 6:30 each day. They're going to walk the residents through the application process. So as soon as we have a specific date on that right there, we'll get with you, and then we'll get it, published to the residents and all that, and let you know that.
Thank you.
And then also on the governor's office on the
GOSEP?
on the GOSEP on the RVs. Really, we don't have any answers on that right now. They don't even have any answers right there. They do not want to move these folks out of those trailers right there. They're trying to figure out how they can keep them in place right there. Because if they take the trailers away, they don't have a home.
Right.
So, and they don't want to do that, so, all right. Yeah, Patty?
Mr. McCarthy?
Thank you. Mr. Helmich, the Go Mesa money, is that part of the bill that Mary Landrieu put forth for us to get revenue back? And if so, is it possible to go beyond the time before Mary Landrieu wrote that and get reparation money that we never collected?
She tried. We actually spoke with Mary while we was up there. She was part of our teams. She's the big reason that Go Mesa exists today. But she tried to get previous. We don't have, honestly, we just don't have the votes, and most of the Congress don't. It's not a big deal to them as it is to us. But Mary is still consistently working to improve the Go Mesa one step at a time. Taking the cap off is the main thing. Once we get the cap off, that drives a lot of cash back to the states and the parishes that are in here.
Okay. Thank you.
John had mentioned, we were dealing with just the coastal states, but also we also visited with what they call the landlocked states also. And it seemed like last night after yesterday's meetings, we got together and we just kind of discussed how we felt the meetings went. And even the landlocked states were interested in this, and it was all very positive here. So we're feeling good about this. Like, at the end of the day, the vote might be there to move this thing forward here. So that's it from me.
Dr. Gouy?
Given the scope of this, President Hinckley, are you anticipating us as a council being able to get a lobbyist soon in DC? Are we looking at a month maybe?
I think we have.
Done
that
close?
Stems on, it's very close.
Okay.
I think with what we have going on with some of the ordinances here today, as far as the lawsuit concerning EMS right there, as soon as we get that resolved there, then we can move forward with it there.
And then for John, you mentioned about New York and the Carolinas and the money. So that tells me that any money coming in is going to go to the state.
That's correct.
Okay? Is there a formula that dictates how the money is distributed to those parishes that are most impacted?
There is a current formula in Go Mesa, and it will apply similar to the wind. Say, I don't have the logistics on it, but we do have 2 lease sales coming up here in Louisiana within the next month. So we will have data on what's the estimate, what's the price of that lease sale? How much would we derive from that lease sale based on the Go Mesa numbers, based without the cap, and so forth. But we just don't have that raw data right now because we don't have a lease formula. Now, all this revenue that comes in has to be dedicated to coastal, levee protection, and the drainage of the basins. Okay, so that's one of the biggest drivers, and I think that's one of our biggest battles in Washington is you have folks that want to kind of put a lot of regulation in there like they did with the restore dollars. We've been sitting on $20 million of restore money since the oil spill. And it's really a big battle to go and a big process to go through that application process. And you have U.S. Treasuries handling the money. So, we've spent a few $1 million out of restore that was appropriated from previous administrations. That money's already been replaced for the interest because of the time it's been sitting in there.
Well, I don't think none of us want a repeat of what happened with BP in that
Right.
parishes received funds that were not impacted by the oil spill.
That's correct.
Those of us who were most impacted got the short end of the stick. So I was questioning on the Go Mesa, is there a formula that shows which parishes are most impacted by the offshore drilling? So a percentage of the money goes to the state would automatically go to those areas.
Right. So the state gets a percentage and Plaquemines Parish gets the largest cut of the pie out of all the parishes.
Okay.
I want to say St. Bernard maybe get about 400,000, but I'll get the formula for that. and
I just wonder if
get
there
it.
was a formula.
Yes, there's a formula. We're closest to the offshore, most of the oil drilling. So we have the biggest slice of the pie when it comes down to the parishes.
One of our, not arguments, but one of our statements that we could make is, here we are, in Louisiana, in the toe of the boot, we are that peninsula that goes out into the middle of, into the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't know if it's a proud thing to say or not, but we're dealing with 250 miles of levees here. I think the next association, if it was Morganza or something like, they have 90 miles of levees that they're dealing with. And alone, you got your federal and non-federal dollars, and that's, we can make the comment, and it's a true statement, is that these monies are spent toward the maintenance of these levees. They're federal levees and non-federal levees. Although the federal government comes in here and builds these levees, we still have to maintain those levees right there. So with that being said, and also with all of the movement that's going on with Venture Global, the potential container port, we were able to make that statement as well, is that here we've got the largest construction contract going on in the world here at $20 billion, plus a potential of a second phase or a third and fourth phase of that as well. And, it kind of brightens their eyes, opens their eyes up a little bit that, what, we're valuable here. We're bringing a lot, not only to Plaquemines Parish, not only to the state, but to the United States here. And there was a comment that was made all day long too, as far as what Meg would make as far as the GDP is we're the third, I mean, we would kind of champion, we would go up against the country or, and some other countries, the GDP that these coastal parishes bring into this country right here, the oil and gas revenues and then the potential win right here. So we're a major factor here. We're a major player. But I'm saying we, meaning all of the coastal parishes here, so.
Reverend Edwards,
Yeah, I jumped in earlier. and
pull your mic down, please.
I jumped in early without putting my name on. I want to go back to President Hinckley about the lady with the property, because I remember before, this might be the same lady, but I thought it was a program talking about the neighbor next door can get preference over it. Is that a different program? It was,
I think that might be a different program right
Yeah,
there.
there's different, what she mostly handles is adjudicated properties, in which case, someone would go in, they would put $1,000 up if they were interested in the property. She would do the title research and make sure that it could be auctioned off. That has to be auctioned off. But yes, there are state statutes that have different programs. Road Home had an issue, and there's also something where if you maintain your neighbor's grass, or you can show where you kept the property up, that there would be some preferential treatment. So we're kind of opening the door with her on this adjudicated property thing. There are some other services that she does provide that, quite frankly, my office doesn't have the time to do. So as we open that door, I think we're going to continue to explore other options and opportunities that her and her staff offers. And the good thing about the adjudicated property thing, it's no cost to the parish. The applicant puts $1,000 up. If that person doesn't end up with the property at the end of the bidding process, the bidder, it's put into the bid that bidder pays $1,000, and the person who initially did the inquiry gets their $1,000 back.
my question is, how do one know that this property is available? You know, how that
So-
information put out there? Because
So first of all, she has a website. I think it's Parish Taxland. I think it's Parish. I'll send you guys the email tomorrow, but it's like Parish Taxland. So she actually does this for about, I don't know, I think 12 other parishes. And you basically click the parish and a list of all the adjudicated properties come up. And so any person can go on that website, click, and see all the various properties throughout the parish that are available for adjudication. The other available to purchase through the process. The other thing we can do is we can spend a little money doing some advertising. So we can publish them in the Gazette. We could do them by city. We could, these are on the southern end, these are on the northern end, and advertise them so that the public can become more aware of what's available.
yeah, because I think it's very important that if you have areas in East Bank or certain community, then allow the people in that community to get that property, as opposed to somebody from the West Bank. I'm not opposed to somebody from West Bank getting property on the East Bank, but if you got somebody on the East Bank closest, I would just want to make sure that's available to them.
Yeah,
But I'm just using that as an example.
Well, for certain programs, there would be a preference, but for the adjudicated properties through the sales tax, because of the sales tax issue, those have to be publicly bid, and the
Okay.
highest bidder would get the property in that case. But I'll forward you the stuff you're talking about, the statutes, and we can have further discussion on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Konovich?
Would all parish properties go into that? Because I know I got some places in
Well, we
Garrison and Triumph.
we have the option of using that. I mean, that would be, a fee or something that she would charge, and we would have to discuss about how to handle that. So yes, if we want to, there are certain leases my office are able to handle that we've always handled, but because the parish, has had revenue issues and we're trying to get more money. I know some council members and all want to put the pedal so that we can get more revenues from these various properties that we own in fee, not sales tax, that we actually own outright. And so we have a list we've compiled, and and if the council so chooses, depending on which direction we go, we can also have these available on her website. We could advertise them on the Gazette. Anybody could go in, click and see. And pay the fee as well, and get that process rolling as well.
'Cause I have a couple people that want to buy, like where the Council on Aging was in Venice and
Yeah.
Scott and Aaron.
Look, if the adjudicated property stuff works out, look, I was very impressed. That's why I asked the parish president to meet with her. I'm very impressed by this individual, and actually she'd be happy to come down. She will come down because you all are going to have to approve the program that we would like to implement by ordinance, and so she'll definitely come down when that's before you all and explain to you all the progress, the program that she does, and all the various other services that she does.
Mr. Juritic?
This one's for Mr. Helmers. Mr. Helmers, the status of the Mardi Gras Pass coastal use permit. You have that in your possession?
I do not have the status of it of right now. I'd have to get that status. I am working on pulling all the resources and everything that's been done by the parish and anyone else on Mardi Gras Pass at this time, to see where we're at.
Yeah, see, it just says awaiting payment of fees, so I don't know what that means, but I'm sure you must have that on your desk.
Yep.
Just one, I'm sorry.
Mr. Schultz?
You want to, go ahead.
Well, I guess one last comment I wanted to make about the coastal projects and everything. I've got John also working up a list of all of the projects that we've got going on in the parish, on the east bank, the west bank, so that there's a whole lot of moving parts right here. And on a daily basis, we're talking about different, dredging projects and obviously the other project. But I need to see it myself. I need to see all of these projects. So we're compiling that list together, where we are and where, is it here? At what phase are we in? So that we have a better understanding and we know exactly what's going on off the coast. Also, St. Bernard was just issued, they were just awarded a couple of projects, but the two projects are in Plaquemines Parish. But it benefits St. Bernard, so it's good for us as well. So we'll have that knowledge as well there.
If you want to come to Venice, I'll take you out on the Spanish Pass Ridge. And
I need to do that. I'm ready. So let's get together and do that. Okay.
Mr. Schultz?
So, change the subject. Yesterday at 4 o'clock, we got 5 changes to ordinances and resolutions. We need to do a better job for the public, the assistants, council secretary, to get these changes in by the Friday per our rules. I know things happen, but if we could really do a better job, we're trying to be more transparent and everything with changes going on less than 24 hours to a meeting. If y'all could work on that. I know we do. We make last minute requests also, but I'm just saying we're just as guilty. But as a council and administration, if we could really try to work to follow our rules.
I don't have a problem with that at all. Not a problem.
Mr. Champagne?
Yeah, just a caveat on what Councilman Schultz said. Rule 17 says any proposed resolution or ordinance for the council or behalf of the council or any of its political subdivisions therewith shall first be submitted for introduction to the council member of that district, which is directly affected by the proposed resolution or ordinance in council secretary's office by the end of the business day on Friday before the council meeting. Just to add on to what Councilman Schultz said, if it's that important, and as as our gentleman always says, for the people, we are working for the people, and if it's that important, it has to be done by Friday so we can do our homework, study it over the weekend, collaborate amongst ourselves, and make an informed decision. I'll tell you, some of these things that popped on our desk as late as today, it's going to be difficult to make an informed decision. So I bring that up. I know we're trying to do a better job of it and not to throw rocks at anybody. I think it's just a way that we've gotten used to doing business, and we just need to tighten that up a little bit and do a better job. And we owe that not only to people, we owe that to administration as well, too, because we can't make good decisions to get back to you with our questions or concerns in a timely manner.
Well, I'm in total agreement with you because the statement that you made, the way we used to do business, my staff can tell you right now when we sit in our meetings, I'll ask, why do we do this? Well, that's the way we've always done it, but it's not good. We're not doing it that way anymore. So look, we can really clean this up. That's not a problem right here. It's not a bad ask. We have to work together on that right there. Okay?
Mr. President, y'all had a hurricane preparedness meeting. Could you elaborate on that meeting? Could you tell us what happened?
We had, basically, the way I can explain it to you is it was like a real hurricane coming through, and we just went through the room. Everyone's We had someone from NOAA, the weather station. Go Mesa was there. GoSep, I'm sorry, not Go Mesa. I've been saying Go Mesa for the last 3 days. GoSep was there. We had Patrick there. We had all of our staff, engineering. We had the sheriff's office was there. So we just basically, it was it's a simulation of a storm. We used Ida as an example as to, okay, here's what we need to do on this day. We're so many hours out. The young lady from NOAA, she was able to just kind of, technology is changing. So she was able to say, okay, we're going to probably try to get a little better as far as we'll be able to say that the storm is going to come in this direction. They're able to report and have a better direction on the storms. It was just going through the motions, and it's being prepped for it.
Mr. Witcher, could you give us, the councilman, an update on our pumping station? Give us a report on what percentage of our pumps are working?
Well, they're all working.
Okay.
For the most part, they're all working, obviously. They're all functional. I don't have a percentage per pump station in front of me. I'll get that information to you as soon as possible. But there are 2 on this side of the river that still have temporary pumps that run in conjunction with the pumps inside the plant. There's a couple things like that, but I'll get you a list.
Yeah, so I mean, our permanent pumps.
Yeah.
I mean, if all of them not working, then we're not at 100%.
Correct.
So, okay. Okay, all right. Mr. McCarthy?
I have 4 pumps in District 5, but 2 of them are the responsibility of Plaquemines Parish. I've been trying to find out who could give me a detailed report on their condition and the building condition. I asked for it from Ken Dugas, and it just got pushed down the line somehow.
You're asking the right place right now.
Okay, thank you,
I'll get that information for you. I'll get what you can see specifically what you want, and I'll get it for you.
thank you.
We have 7 stations.
Wow.
Okay, we'll move to the next item, please.
5, bids and advertisements.
Oh, none.
There are none. 6, beer and liquor licenses.
If you have any, please key in. Mr. Jurtich?
Yes, I have one. It's pertaining to the Easter Parade and Gathering at the Jesuit Bend Park. Address 13512, Highway 23, Belle Chase, Louisiana, 70037.
That's the only one? So we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Jurtich.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Newsom. Any comments from the table? Any public comments? Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0.
7, building permits. 7A, construction permits.
We'll take item 1, 2, and 3 in globo.
Texas Petroleum Investment Co., application number 2023-145, application date 2/28/23, install temporary pile clusters and drill the sidetrack well, U154 sidetrack southwest pass field. Councilmember Kotnovich. Texas Petroleum Investment Co., application number 2023-146, application date 2/28/23, install pile clusters and rock pad, drill the SL 3851 number 9 offset well, install caisson well protector walkway, pipe rack, 4-inch flow line and 3-inch gas lift line, main pass area block 65. Councilmember Edwards. Locks LLC, application number 2023-171, application date 3/9/23, drill the Mustang Prospect A, install caisson well protector well separator platform with walkway and 2 4-inch flow lines and 1 2-inch gas lift line. Breton Sound blocks 23, 25, and 26. Councilmember Edwards.
We have a motion by Reverend Edwards, seconded by Dr. Gouy. Any comments? Any public comments? Comments from the table? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-4, one abstention.
Mr. Chairman, I ask if we can move to item M on the agenda? 9M? Have someone here that has a.
I know, but,
engagement.
Could we take item 9M, please?
An ordinance to authorize execution of revised agreement for the operation, maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement of the west closure complex of the West Bank Hurricane Protection Project and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Jurisic.
So offered.
We have a motion by Mr. George. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Conovich. Mr. George.
Okay, this is an ordinance to authorize execution of revised agreement of the operation, maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement of the west closure complex of the West Bank Hurricane Protection Project. I think we have someone here ready.
Yes, we have Nick. What was your last name? I'm sorry.
Cali.
Oh, okay. From SLIPA West, who I know some of you council members are new, so you're not quite as familiar with the facility as maybe some of the other council members. Anyway, as you all know, I forwarded you all the ordinance for introduction and some of the explanations related to how the 20% number was derived from, and also what our obligations are pursuant to a lot of these NOV projects. As the parish president said, the federal government will come in and build these projects, but they expect us to do what they call OMRR in R, which is operations, maintenance, repair, rehabilitation, and replacement. And so because this was part of that project, part of the system, CPRA looked to the local governing authorities to pay for these expenses related thereto. The 20% was derived from, what they basically did was they looked at all of the pumping stations to see how much water each jurisdiction pumped into the polder, and Plaquemines Parish share of that pumped water into the polder, which is then pumped out further, was 20%. And so that's how the 20% number was derived from. I wasn't around when all that happened, so that's why I asked someone from SLIPA West to come to answer any questions you all have about what we get for our money, and further questions about how the arrangement came to be. And it's also my understanding that they're willing to offer you guys a tour of the facility so that you can, kind of see it for yourself.
State your name, please, and your address.
My name is Nicholas Cali. I'm the Regional Director of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West at 7001 River Road in Marrero. And I'm here to answer any questions or clarify. The agreement was crafted almost 10 years ago, and this is just a renewal. I will say that it has worked very well up to this point, and the structure is performing exactly as designed.
Any questions from the table? Do we have any public comments? Administration? Dr. Gould?
We're talking 80-20, and it's been in effect, what, 8 years, whatever?
9 years, yes, sir.
9 years. How have we paid our portion?
We invoice monthly based on actuals from from the previous month, and we submit the invoice and it's paid. So it's been a non-issue with the 3 parishes that are involved.
Every year, the council, I think finance just puts it in the budget. You probably don't even realize it, but it's always put in the budget as part of the proposed budget, and it's always adopted by the council. I don't think there's ever been any discussion on it, but that's why you may not be familiar with why didn't we appropriate these funds. It's done through the annual budget process.
How much has it been?
It's 300 and
So I'd like to point out that the original estimate for the operation and maintenance of the structure was about $4 million annually. I'm proud to say that we've been doing it for less than $1 million annually, with no issues at all. So Plaquemines' share is typically not to exceed $200,000.
Very good.
Yeah, I think we budget like 300,000, but obviously what we don't expend stays in the budget and rolls over to the next year.
Ms. McCarthy?
I'm sorry, I missed your name. Are you the person I spoke to a couple of days ago?
No, ma'am, that was my board president. It's
Okay.
Scott Burke. I'm Nick Cali.
Okay, Nick. I know that I've asked some questions that are out of the ordinary regarding this pump. But as a business person, I like to see if we can always get the best bang for our buck. And because the pump benefits Jefferson Parish mostly, and it is technically inside the line of Plaquemines Parish, I was trying to ask Scott if we could someday renegotiate the cost of this, because if we were leasing that land, why would we be paying for a percentage of it? I know we're not leasing the land, but let's say we were leasing the land, why would we pay for a percentage of a pump that benefits Jefferson Parish? So that's why I'd like you to, when this comes up, to look for the best negotiation for this parish possible.
Certainly. I would say that this decision was not made in a vacuum, and they evaluated a number of different alternatives to come to the pro rata share. This was the most fair, most equitable for all the parties involved for the three parishes. And, the negotiation was done in conjunction with Plaquemines Parish, CPRA, and the Flood Authority all at the table. And so this was mutually agreed upon, obviously, before any of us were in our current position. So I understand what you're asking.
So how much does this benefit Plaquemines Parish? Because from what I understand, it's almost 100% Jefferson Parish.
No, ma'am, that's not correct.
Okay.
So when the structure is operated, we close the sector gate. That is the first function, and it prevents storm surge from intruding into the protected areas in the Harvey and Algiers Canal. But when that gate is closed, it creates a closed basin. There are 9 pump stations that discharge into that basin. The structure exists at the confluence of those two waterways to remove the water from that basin to maintain that safe water elevation. So if we were not pumping, then you run the risk of overtopping the levees interior in the Algiers Canal and impacting areas in Plaquemines Parish as well as Jefferson Parish.
The intercoastal?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cowley, for that report.
And again, I would like to invite anyone who would like to come see the structure. If you've not seen it, it is very impressive. We'd love to host people for a tour.
We'd love to come see it. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We'll move back to item 7. Oh, okay. Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously, 9-0. We'll move to 7A.
7B.
7B is deferred. We'll move to 7A, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J. We'll take them in globo.
River Oaks RV Park, Billwood Smith Jr. Trailer Park Renewal, 26287 Highway 23, Port Sulphur, Louisiana. Councilmember LaFrance. Deep South RV Park LLC, Michael Valiant Trailer Park Renewal, 32368 Highway 23, Empire, Louisiana. Venice Charters Unlimited LLC, Brent Roy Trailer Park Renewal, Emmett Lane, Boothville, Louisiana. Councilmember Kotnovich. Emmett's Trailer Park, Dennis Adolph Jr. Trailer Park Renewal, Yvonne Lane, Boothville, Louisiana. Councilmember Kotnovich. Fee Incorporated Trailer Park Renewal, Ernie's Lane, Boothville, Louisiana. Councilmember Kotnovich. Goodman's Trailer Park Incorporated, Todd Goodman Trailer Park Renewal, Goodman Lane, Boothville, Louisiana. Councilmember Kotnovich. J Bar Sportsman's Lounge, Jeff Johnson Trailer Park Renewal, Galmitch and Doris Lane, Empire, Louisiana. Councilmember Jurisic. Gladys Trailer Park, Roe Lee Trailer Park Renewal, Gladys Lane, Boothville, Louisiana. Councilmember Kotnovich.
I'll offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Conovich, seconded by Mr. Jurich. Any public comments? From the table. Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0.
7K Fields and Waves Outdoor Adventures LLC, business occupancy 41456, Highway 23, Venice, Louisiana, Councilmember Kotnovich. Liliana Technologies Incorporated, business occupancy 41456, Highway 23, Venice, Louisiana, Councilmember Kotnovich.
I'll offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Conovich.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Jurdich. Mr. Conovich.
Yes, the gentleman here is here who owns it, and he'd like to come explain some things to y'all.
Please step to the podium. State your name and your address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Corbin. Address is 154 Primrose Drive in Bell Chase. The address that we're looking at is 41456 Highway 23 down in Venice. So what we've done is we've purchased that building. It used to be the old Now building, the National Oil Well building. We bought that building and we've cleaned it up and we're working to revamp it to turn it into a hotel so that we can then have additional lodging, people coming in to stay there to go charter fishing and hunting. So we have a charter fishing and hunting service. We're providing that for the area, bringing that business down there. The other thing that we're doing, which is really neat, we have a leasee for about 5,000 square foot of the building, which is Liliana Technologies. So Benjamin, who's the owner of that company, wasn't able to come today. He's out of Houston. They're moving their manufacturing process over to the Venice area. And what they do in that building is it's a bioremediation company. So they go and grow phytoplankton or microplankton to insert into the delta areas out into the ocean to help bring in oxygen to limit and eliminate the dead zone. So they've done some test models over in Texas. They released the phytoplankton, and it's the I think most of you probably know phytoplankton is the food for the crustaceans and for the pogies and the other smaller fish. And so it's a beneficial plankton that they're putting into the ocean. It also removes carbon from the water and presses it down to the ocean floor, which allows for the ocean to remove more carbon from the air. The majority of the carbon that's being removed isn't from the forest, it's from the ocean. So they're adding this phytoplankton is really beneficial, and they'll be doing that right there in our building. So it's basically an aquarium that they'll put inside the warehouse, and they'll grow the plankton and then take it out and release it in other areas where they'll measure the growth of what's going on in here. That's just about as much technology I can talk about those other people's business. So hopefully you don't have too many detailed questions on that.
Any public comment? From the table, Mr. Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, just want to thank you and appreciate you coming down there and getting some development down at the low end of the parish. So thank you, guys. Sounds like a very good program. We have the hotel. How many rooms are we talking about?
We have 6 rooms that will be available for people to come in and stay. We'll have up to 3 to 4 people per room.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. McCarthy.
What was your name again?
Michael Corbin.
Corbin? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you as well for coming down and putting a development in our parish. I would ask that you get with the Tourism Commission
Yes.
and communicate with them on how you two could work together. And also, you said Louisiana Tech is going to be in your building? Is that correct?
No, it's Liliana Technologies.
Oh,
It's,
Liliana Technologies.
up under L.
Okay. Okay, I see. Thank you. I'm interested in what they're doing with plankton, and I think it might be of interest to us because of the diversion that's going on to find out if it might help sustain some of the species that attract the shrimp and the fish to the
Yes,
parish.
so I did ask that question because I knew the diversion was more than likely coming and it was going to be impacting it. So the locations that they're going to be depositing, or they bring in the ocean water, bring it into the aquarium, the water that's coming from the Gulf. They use that to grow the plankton in, and then they take it back out in tanks and flush it back into the system. They're doing it close to the entry, or is that Barataria Bay? Close to the entry of the the Mississippi going out into the Gulf because it has to have a certain amount of saltwater influx for the microplankton to grow. That freshwater diversion that'll come down there, it should not impact it too negatively. What they're doing is putting nutrients in back into the system, the natural nutrients back into the system, so that the shrimp and the crustaceans and the other things will have more food to eat. So I used to be the vice president of operations at the Daybrook facilities with the pogies. That's a really big deal to say that you put in food for the pogies so that they'll be able to go back to their natural migration, which has changed over the last few years. And so all of this helps the natural growth of the seafood industry that we have down there. And it's the biggest benefit is two things: shrinking the dead zone and removing carbon down to the floor bed out of the ocean water, which puts more oxygen in there so it can take more carbon out of our air that's breathing. But specifically to answer your question, to the best of my knowledge, where they're doing the deposit of the phytoplankton, it's minimized, the impact is minimized by the diversion project where the fresh water is coming in, because they have to have a certain amount of salt water for it to repopulate.
So I would be interested in having that company send us a letter and let us know if they can do something to minimize the impact of the diversion where all the fresh water is going to flee into the salt water.
Okay.
Over there.
I will definitely, I'll give them a call as soon as I leave here and tell them he
Okay.
needs to bring some more.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Corbin.
I would like to have an invitation to see your facility when it's up and running. Mr. Juritage,
I'd love to have you come down and then take you fishing too, so.
sound like a winner.
All right, one of the things when you're talking about, you're dropping the carbon to the sea floor. Is that gonna cause any harm to any species living on the sea? Another question that I asked, and I can answer that one, no. So if you have a carbon filter in your house and you take that and you use it as fertilizer, it grows the grass, the other stuff really well. So what that does is it helps your seabed grow back. So it's the carbon that's already in the water. It's not introduced carbon where they're pumping it up under the ground and that kind of stuff. This is the natural carbon that's in the water that will go down to the seabed, and it becomes a nutrient for the grasses, hopefully for the sea trout to come back stronger.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about, oysters and stuff like that. That filter feed and.
But the filter feeders get more food from the phytoplankton that's going in there, where they get more nutrients. So it works out really well for them.
Oh, I understand that, but that carbon shouldn't interfere with.
To the best of my ability, what he told me, he said no, but I don't want to speak on behalf of Liliana Technologies.
And this is not no non-native stuff.
It's all native phytoplankton.
Mr. Juritage, when I get my oysters from you, I want it carbon-free.
Well, you gotta think about this guy.
Mr. Konovich.
Thank you for the tour the other day. He's doing everything right. He went and got his licenses. He went to the tourism board. He'll be paying hotel, motel taxes. And, we didn't have to go out and catch him like some of them. So, thank you.
Mr. Champagne.
Mr. Corbin, I had the pleasure of speaking with you and your colleague before the meeting. Thank you for the briefing on all that you're doing. And also wanted to let everyone know he's a veteran, so thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, and thank you for your service also.
Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-4 and 1 abstention. We'll move to the next item, please.
8, introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
We have 4 for Councilmember LaFrance. A resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of not to exceed blank dollars of hurricane recovery revenue notes of the Parish of Plaquemine, State of Louisiana, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution authorizing Plaquemine's parish government to join the Attorney General of Louisiana in litigation against FEMA to challenge Risk Rating 2.0 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2023 Public Health Operating Expenditure Budget ambulance, general department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto, and a resolution directing the president of the parish of Plaquemines to issue a formal request to the state of Louisiana to enact legislation directed to the State Department of Health and Human Services, requiring that the said agency expand its programs testing imported shrimp from outside of the United States to include testing for all possible harmful substances, and further to pass legislation providing sufficient funding to DHH to enable the establishment of sufficient testing procedures and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. The following four are for Councilmember Edwards. An ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund operating expenditure budget, recreation, Day Vance Summer Recreation Program Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, repairs, Point-a-la-Hash Telecom Tower Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, repairs, Woodland Braithwaite Fire Stations Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. I have, one more, sorry. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvement plan, repairs, Point-a-la-Hash Pump Station Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. I have two for Councilmember Schultz. An ordinance to amend Chapter 13 of the Parish Code of Ordinances by enacting Article 10, Food Truck Regulations, establishing the rules and regulations regarding the permit, operation, and sale of food products from mobile vehicles in the Parish of Plaquemines, Louisiana, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution to amend Resolution Number 97-117 and Ordinance Number 19-143, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. We have one for Councilmember McCarty. An ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund operating expenditure budget, Parish Council District 5 Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And the final two are for Councilmember Newsom. An ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvement plan, repairs South Concord Road Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund operating expenditure budget, Recreation Facilities and Services Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That is it.
Okay.
Nine.
9A1 deferred, 9A2 deferred, 9A3 deferred. Nine A4, please.
An ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property of Galliano Marine Service LLC, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on a map by GIS Engineering LLC entitled Galliano Marine Service LLC Re-Subdivision Survey Plat showing.
Excuse me, we'll defer that item too.
Five, an ordinance to authorize and direct the parish president of his designate to place stop signs and/or no parking signs at several locations on Planters Canal Road, Mildred Street, Railroad Street, and Burmaster Street, Bellchase, Louisiana, to establish a penalty for the violation thereof and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember McCarty.
So offered.
We have a motion by Mrs. McCarty,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Konovich. Ms. McCarty.
The residents have asked that what we added on to Railroad Street. So this is to replace signs where there should be along Railroad Street. And then the residents have asked that people not obstruct the entrances to Railroad Street, because now we used to have 5 entrances to the neighborhood, now there are only 2. So, and then some stop signs and other no parking signs were knocked down during the construction, and we're simply replacing those and putting them back up where they were before.
Any public comments? Comments from the table? Administration? Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously. 9-0. Next item, please.
6, an ordinance to establish credit card and electronic check service and convenience fees for the processing of online permit fee payments in the Permits, Planning, and Zoning Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance.
I so offered. Seconded by Dr. Gui. Any public comments? From the table. Administration? Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously, 9-0. Next item, please.
7, an ordinance approving a plan of re-subdivision of the property of the River Chase Properties LLC, Plaquemines Parish, Louisiana, as shown on the map of re-subdivision, lots 1 through 10 into lots 1A through 9A, square 50, Belchase Township by Brian Hammett and Associates, certified by U. McCurdy, 3rd PLS, dated June 30th, 2022, the owners having fulfilled all the requirements of the subdivision and re-subdivision ordinance of the parish of Plaquemines without cost to the Plaquemines Parish government or the parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Champagne.
So offered.
I have a motion by Mr. Champagne, seconded by Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, what
Any,
this- we want to-
go ahead.
yeah, what this is converting 10 lots that were 30-foot wide by 150-foot deep into 6 lots that will be, 5 lots that will be 60-foot wide, 150-foot deep. It just offers a better opportunity to build fixed structures as opposed to the original zoning. It's approved by all departments and will be at no cost to the parish, so I recommend approval.
Any public comments? From the table, Mr. Konovich?
This is on Main Street past the fence by the Coast Guard?
No, it's off Main Street. Yeah, it's along Main Street, a block right off Main Street, parallel to Main Street.
Microphone.
It's parallel to Main Street. It's where they're developing those houses that look kind of like New Orleans style houses. Yeah.
But you don't have to pass the gate for the Coast Guard, huh?
No, no, no. No, this is way down by Avenue G by the ferry.
All right.
Yeah, by Sun Drilling.
Thank you.
Administration? Machines are open. And the measure passes 8-0. Let the record reflect that Reverend Evans step away from the table. Next item, please.
9B is withdrawn. 9C is deferred. 9D is deferred. 9E is withdrawn.
I wanted to make a comment on that.
A resolution urging the Plaquemines Parish Tourist Commission to provide public access to budgets and meeting materials and to provide bi-monthly updates to the Plaquemines Parish Council and to provide for related matters. Councilmember McCarty.
You offer?
Offered, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. McCarty for discussion.
Yeah, discussion on.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Konovich. Ms. McCarty.
I spoke with representatives of the Tourist Commission, Tourist Group, and they have said that they will develop a marketing plan, analyze the return on investment, and perform a yearly audit. And that's merely all we were looking for, is to find out if they were structured and organized and to be able to see where they're headed. So I'm withdrawing this. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to the next item, please.
9F, an ordinance to amend the 2023 General Fund and Road Maintenance Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Disaster Preparedness Department, and Road Maintenance Public Right-of-Way Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance, this has changes.
We have changes.
Okay, can you read the changes?
Sure. On lines 3 and 4, the following language was added: and the firefighting fund operating expenditure budget, firefighting general department. On line 7, and the firefighting general department. Line 9, and the firefighting fund reserved undesignated fund balance. On line 16, the 800,000 was removed and 450,000 was put into it. On line 25 in the chart, it's an increase now of 250,000 as opposed to the original 600,000. Then section 2 has changed. It now reads the 2023 firefighting fund operating expenditure budget, firefighting general department is amended by appropriating $350,000 from the firefighting fund unreserved undesignated fund balance as follows. Line item 565.001, equipment general has been increased by 350,000, and that's in the firefighting fund, firefighting general department. And then the original section 2 has now been renamed section 3. And that's it.
Any public comments?
We got off.
We need a second.
Mr. Connery seconded.
Okay, sorry. I was too busy reading.
Yeah. Any public comments from the table? Mr. Schultz.
So this is one of the ones that we had changes at 4 o'clock yesterday. I don't understand how all of a sudden at 4 o'clock, we moved 350,000 from the right-of-way to firefighter. So I called Mr. Butcher, the superintendent, asked him what this was about. And as of yesterday, he didn't even have a list of what equipment is being purchased. So how are we using firefighting funds when the superintendent doesn't even know what's being purchased? I later found out supposedly it's generators and forklift. They have a forklift that works fine for them, is my understanding. So I'm just trying to figure out why we're using firefighting funds to purchase this equipment.
Well, this is for emergency preparedness right here, plus these are assets that will benefit the fire department in the future as well.
Okay, and what exactly are we purchasing? I
Here you go.
mean, we don't even have a list of what we're purchasing.
Okay.
And my understanding is the superintendent doesn't even know.
Okay.
And that's my issue about late changes like this.
Well, we can go over these changes right now, and we can defer.
Okay, yeah, I would like to defer until where we can all be on the same page, because like I said, it was changed late afternoon, and I just want to know what's going on.
All right, the item is deferred.
Defer.
We'll move to the next item, please.
G, an ordinance to amend the 2023 general fund operating expenditure budget, legal judgments department for payment of judgment and attorney's fees in case number 187378, section D, 5 in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Louisiana and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember LaFrance.
And
Could we
have
fill in the blanks?
We have changes also.
Okay.
On lines 5, 9, and 9, they have inserted $877,000 in each line. In section 1, line 14, $167,000 has been inserted, and the fund balance designated for emergencies has been filled in the blank. In the line 20 in the chart, they changed the object number to 55.2-127 and increased the amendment to $167,000. Sections 2 and 3 are new sections, which reads as follows. The 2023 firefighting fund operating expenditure budget, ambulance general department, is amended by appropriating $610,000 from the firefighting fund unreserved undesignated fund balance as follows. And the chart includes fund number 119, firefighting fund, Department 555-2700, ambulance general department. It goes into salary and wages, FICA taxes, judgments and damages. Keith Babin. Every line object number has been increased. The first one, 510-805, salary and wages were increased by $190,000. 515.005, FICA taxes was increased by $35,000. 552.127, judgments and damages, Keith Babin, has been increased by $385,000. Section 3, the 2023 Public Health Fund Operating Expenditure Budget, Ambulance General Department is amended by appropriating $100,000 from the fund balance designated for emergencies as followed. The fund balance is Public Health Fund. The department division is Ambulance General Department. Object number 510-805, salary and wages was increased by $82,000, and object number 515.005, FICA taxes increased by $18,000. And the last section has been changed from number 2 to number 4, and those are the changes.
I'll offer for discussion, seconded by Mr. Konovich. I'll yield to the administration.
I'm going to let legal, this is the EMS situation.
So the way this came up, so basically in executive session, we discussed what judgment was coming down. The judgments came down. I forwarded all that to you guys. The most equitable way that finance and the administration came up with to divvy up these funds is what overtime was owed when they were under fire and what overtime was owed when EMS was under the general fund and the health fund. And so for 2016, the lawsuit goes back to 2016. So for 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, EMTs were under the fire department. And so we took that number, we added that up. In the case of Mr. Babin, that was $48,437 for fire. And then in 21 and 22, the fire department was under the health fund. That's when the council made the transfer and sent it to the general fund. So we added up those numbers, and overtime in this case for Mr. Babin was, I think, $2,123, although he had left. And so what we did is we calculated all the numbers for all the plaintiffs for the years they were under fire, and all the number for all the plaintiffs that they were under the general fund and the health fund, and so the actual numbers is what we pay, is what we're paying. So then what we did is we said, okay, well, of those actual numbers, what is that percentage? And so for the fire department, it was roughly 70%. It was 69.71%. And for the health department, it was 30.28%. And so for the liquidated damages and for the attorney's fees that were due pursuant to the court order, and the FICA taxes that would have to be withheld, we said an appropriate apportionment would be whatever was owed to those firefighters when they were under fire and when they were under the health department. So we take those ratios, those formulas, we put them in, and that's how the numbers were spit out. So some of this is going to operating, some of this is going to salaries because we have to pay FICA tax. And I know y'all got this last minute. Let me just, I want to apologize. It wasn't really me. I had to get a tax law expert to provide advice on this. And the tax law expert, didn't get to me by Friday, so I apologize. But time of the essence is on this because if we don't pay this judgment, as we're not paying the judgment, judicial interest is accruing. So however long y'all wait, just know that on a daily basis, judicial interest is accruing. And when you're talking about a judgment this size, $600,000, those fees start to add up quick. So that's the explanation of how finance and the administration came out to appropriate or apportion these funds. Part of the damages were accrued when they were under fire. And part of that had to do with the way the fire department had policies related to how these employees engaged and interacted. And for the 2 years that they were back under the general fund, those were appropriately handled. That's what the ratios came out as. The potential settlement moving forward with the other EMTs moving forward, that we owe 2 years of back pay, none of that will come from fire because for those 2 years, all of those employees were under the general fund and the health fund. So that's how these numbers were derived. And if you got any questions, we'll be happy to answer them as best we can. If you got questions about how this went to that fund and that fund in terms of like FICA and salaries and all that, that was determined by finance. Because some of those payments have to come through the payroll system so that we can determine FICA and determine what the withholdings are. And the other payments are just simply 1099 payments. And so those were put in other line items. And what we'll do is we'll write them a check and send them a 1099.
Any public comments? Mr. Schultz.
So I understand the process y'all use, but I don't agree with it based on fire, because in 2015, the Attorney General letter said that EMS should be merged completely into fire. I understand it wasn't this administration, but the fire department tried to merge EMS through physicals and stuff. Administration told them stop. They tried to shift some of the ambulance crews to the fire crew of 24 on, 48 off. And that would have solved this overtime issue at the time. The administration told them stop. So fire or EMS was never officially merged into fire. And it's clear that that happened because, 2 years ago, they basically reversed the ordinance back from 15 and moved them back to EMS. So my question is, since they were never officially even merged, can we even legally do this using fire tax money, since that clearly says for fire department and they were never officially merged?
Well, they were officially merged because the council passed an ordinance officially merging them.
But did they
Now,
ever join fire
how
civil
they-
service?
How civil service treated them and whether or not they got the benefits that were provided to the firemen pursuant to state laws and how their schedules were done, in my mind, is really irrelevant because the council passed an ordinance saying the EMT department will be under the fire department. And that's why in 2021, they had to pass an ordinance rescinding that ordinance, saying now it's under the health department. And well, I keep saying the health department, but it's they're their own department now, but they're paid for out of the general fund in the health department, the health fund, I should say, not health department.
Correct, but the whole fire department currently and before 2015 is under fire civil service, correct?
The who?
The whole fire department, not including the years that EMS was under, all the fire department is under the state fire civil service, correct?
Firefighters have their own protections under their
Correct.
own fire.
So if we
schedule.
never joined them properly into the civil service, were they technically ever approved? I mean, because the Attorney General's opinion that they used to do this clearly said to abolish EMS, which in my opinion, if they're still their own separate department and then we move them out, that's not abolishing EMS. They were supposed to be joined. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm one vote. I don't agree with the way we're using fire funds. And again, since we're using fire funds again, 3 years later to pay for this judgment, in my opinion, I'm not a legal expert, you are and Mr. Garrett is, I don't think you can use the tax money for that. But that's my opinion.
Well, we used it to pay their salaries for those 2016 through 2022. So if we use the money to pay their salaries, if we would go under your logic, we would technically have to go back for all those 5 years and pay that back. So I don't, so look, the council determined that they were under fire. Whether or not they ever joined the quote unquote civil service system that is set up for fire, I think is a different legal issue. As far as I'm concerned, the Plaquemines Parish government made the transfer. And if they didn't join fire, they were still operating or still being treated under the general civil service rules that apply to all of the other parish agencies.
Okay. I mean, that, like I said, because they never, and like I said, fire department at the time tried to make EMS follow fire civil service. They tried to make them follow fire schedule of 24 or 48. And that would solve some of these overtime issues. Now, granted, there would still been overtime, but not as bad as it is with this judgment. Mr. Garrett, do you want to weigh in from a legal standpoint? Well, I mean, I just want to hear legal.
I do. I think I agree with Rennie in this respect, in the sense that there's a difference between whether someone is considered a firefighter for firefighter civil service and whether or not you have an employee who is under a fire department but doesn't necessarily qualify as a firefighter.
Okay, really quick question. Is there EMS employees under the fire civil service, the state fire civil service, or not Orleans, Jefferson Parish? Or let's say Bossier Parish, I know, or Bossier City, they have fire and EMS combined. Are they under, I mean, because there are EMS positions and EMTs, paramedics under the fire civil service, and they are paid according to those rates. So I understand they're not firefighters, but they should have been moved to the fire civil service under the EMS classification.
I would have to actually check.
Okay.
But, because I know in East Baton Rouge, they have, it's kind of a hybrid. They have an EMS department. They also have a fire department. And I don't think the EMS, people in EMS are necessarily firefighters. But like I said, I could check and see how it's done. But I think the calculation was done based upon how those salaries were paid at that time and out of what budget they were paid.
Yep.
And so, and you know, certainly that's a logic to do it. Certainly, I would agree with Rennie that figure out how to pay the judgment, because unlike the state judgments where we have the settlement process set up, federal judgments completely different. They are not at all restrained by the edicts of a state constitution.
I agree. I mean, that's just my opinion on the whole, how that happened. I yield.
Mr. Konovich?
I was going to ask about the legal, because I didn't know they had an attorney general opinion on it, because the fire millage, just like the hospital millage, can only be spent with what that millage says.
I actually was the one who requested the Attorney General opinion, and unfortunately, I didn't bring it with me. But it was my understanding that the Attorney General approved it. He authorized it. In other words, if the Attorney General would have came back and said, well, only if they become quote-unquote firefighters, or only if, they're part of this fire civil service system, they would have said something. In my mind, they would have said, no, you can't do it because of these other reasons. They didn't do it. They said that the services that were contemplated under the millage, it's my understanding, the way I read the Attorney General opinion, is that it was allowed. It was, and honestly, I don't think the parish would have done it had the Attorney General come back a different way.
Oh, and I know it might have been the administration at the time, they were supposed to go underneath the fire civil service, but the ambulance employees couldn't pass the fire.
Yeah, you're right.
test.
Yeah, you're right. And so then the question becomes, what do we do? Do we lay off all do we lay off all of the EMS operators simply because they can't meet the standards of the firefighting department? I don't know. I mean, I think they probably would have had a challenge to say, well, we were moved under fire, but even though we were moved under fire because we didn't become firefighters, we're still EMTs and we're still employees under the parish government umbrella, and so therefore we're entitled to the civil service protections that are offered to all of the other employees except fire. I mean, you got to remember, fire is its own world. Okay, but that didn't make them any less parish employees. And my understanding, the way I read the Attorney General opinion, is it didn't mean that the parish government did something improper or illegal.
That was my understanding, that they couldn't pass the physical test of being a firefighter, so we just kept them underneath the parish civil service. Thank you.
Mr. Newsom?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick, it sounds like it's pretty imperative that we move on this tonight.
It's imperative, and let me read to you what the Attorney General said. Danny was thankful he pulled it up. He said the tax proposition, the Attorney General's office, the tax proposition in consideration authorizes the use of the proposition revenues to be used to pay the salaries, benefits, training, insurance, administration, maintenance, and other costs associated establishing a paid fire department for the parish. These specified purposes constitute funding the general operations of the fire department, which includes providing emergency medical services. The proposed consolidation would enlarge and enhance the already authorized emergency medical services being provided by the fire department and for which the sales and use tax proceeds may be properly expended. It is therefore the opinion of this office that if the council desires to abolish its EMS department, so it did say abolish, but it just said abolish the EMS department and transfer its emergency service operations and duties to the fire department, then the expanded operations of the fire department caused by the consolidation may be funded with the special tax proceeds. So, I read that as the Attorney General saying emergency medical services are contemplated by the tax proposition, and if the council moves emergency medical services to the fire department, and that's part of their mission, then it's a proper use of the tax proceeds to pay those EMS workers, and in this case, I would think, pay the judgment, or a portion of the judgment.
Well, just like I said, I think we need, I know we need
Yeah,
to
and-
move on this today because it's not going away, and all we're gonna do is cost us more money in the long run, so we
Right.
need to move
My-
on it.
my rec-
Take a vote and let's see what happens.
My recommendation is no matter how you divvy up this money, the vote should happen today because I don't want to tick off a federal judge. So a federal judge will ask us why we're not paying the judgment. They'll have the marshals come seize the courthouse. I mean, like Danny said, this isn't one of these judgments we can just do nothing with. So, but at the end of the day, it's up to the council to determine how this money is divvied up. This is what the administration, the legal department, and the finance department thought was the most equitable way to handle this, considering how this department was previously funded and the actions that the council took. Previous councils and previous administrations have handled this issue.
That goes back to, the state tells us we don't have to have ambulance service, but we got to have a dog service where if a dog, something happens to it, we got to pick it up and give it care, but we don't have to have an ambulance service.
Reverend Edwards.
Yeah, to me, this thing need to be paid, and it seems like we're trying to argue the case for something that's already been settled. I think all of what we're saying right now, however we feel, we got to pay the judgment. So I don't know why we're trying to litigate this issue when we got to pay the judgment. What happened in the past, whether it was under fire, whether it's not, the issue is we got to pay the judgment. So I think we could be all day litigating this, but the bottom line, we got to pay this.
Mr. Schultz.
I agree with you 100%, Mr. Edwards. I don't disagree that we need to pay the judgment or vote on it tonight. My opinion is where the funds are coming from to pay it, because second to last sentence says, if the council desires to abolish EMS department and transfer its emergency services operations and due to the fire department. In my opinion, we never abolished EMS because then we 5 years later just basically broke them back out. Again, I'm one vote. I don't believe it should come from the firefighting funds because of the whole history. And I agree. We have to vote on this tonight. That's just my opinion. I yield.
Okay, I had offered this motion, this legislation for discussion. Make a motion that we move on this item tonight. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Konovich. Any public comments? Any more from the table? Administration, machines are open. And the measure passes 8-4, 1 against. Next item, please.
H, a resolution assigning Building 101 in the greenhouse located at the parish government complex in Belchase to the Plaquemines Parish Coastal Resource and Protection Department and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Champagne.
I offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Champagne, seconded by Reverend Edwards. Mr. Champagne.
Yes, and I offer with a last-minute change. Mr. Helmers looked at the greenhouse attached to Building 101 and saw it's just not salvageable. It was not going to be economically salvageable, so he decided to just waive that and go for Building 101. I had the privilege of meeting with one of the coastal zone meetings with Mr. Helmers to discuss this, and he's very passionate about this, so I'd like to yield him. And John, would you mind describing what you want to do with Building 101?
Absolutely. This gives us life outside the levee. So the Coastal Resale Center will be a one-stop shop to educate about the parish's needs for responsibility to maintain and sustain the working coast. The initiative includes the renovation and utilization of Building 101 on the complex. This resource will provide a meeting place for the public with maps, models, resources. We will bring in NGOs, non-government organizations that will also help with the building and occupy the building to show our coast and what's going on outside the levees that most people never see. We're looking to put some Restore Act funds in there. We have some commitments from the NGOs, the Barataria Estuary Program. They'll be talking about the plants. They've donated thousands of plants to us already. We've planted some out on the beginning of Spanish Pass Ridge, planted over 4,000 trees and plants out there. our community has no idea what our coastal resource department does. It's not educated enough. We want to have a place here on the complex, behind Building 100, where people can come and see the actual parts of the projects that are out there and get educated on this, our natural resources, our fisheries. When I say about resiliency, the oysters, how a reef works, all that stuff will be right there at that point. We'll bring in 4-H and Seed Grant and the other folks to help bring this. Our initiative is to also make this a green building. Okay, so we want to power it and work. There's a lot of IJJ grants out there that we'll be working with CPRA, with their liaison that does their grants. They will help us bring the funding in for this. And when we looking at that green energy, we talking about everything green is not, as much as possible inside that building to show folks that the earth is renewable. It can sustain. So that's why we're looking for this to move forward with it.
Thank you, Mr. Jurich.
Yes, Mr. Helmers, you almost had a couple no votes over here because Mr. Champagne, when he's emailing people, he kind of gets things a little out of whack. But be careful on that. Be sure you get those letters in the proper place, Commissioner Champagne.
Mr. Konovich.
Something with Mr. Jurich, I pulled up the email and it had those 4 letters in it. Which building is 101?
It's directly behind the administration.
Is that the one above? It's got the loading dock?
No, that's, the loading dock is the warehouse. It's like, go past the loading dock, and it's the next building on the right.
It was the old cafeteria. It does have a little dock on the back where they used to bring in the groceries. But it's a pretty wide open building.
Also, what we're looking to do, the future of this building, we're going to have a lot of kids in the future. We got the quad coming up. Like last weekend, they had, gosh, I don't know how many young wrestlers out there. So in the future, right. So we're going to encourage these kids. My oldest son and my youngest boys, when they were out running around the country playing baseball and performing arts, we would always find their coaches and their directors would always find other things for them to do while we were playing ball or doing, musicals and things like that. We would go to museums and whatever was the local flavor. So I think this is a good opportunity for these kids that are coming in, because like I said, we had 700 athletes out there, and a few weeks ago we had gymnasts out there. So there's going to be a lot of young people that are going to be coming through this complex. So this is going to give them an opportunity to not only the kids, but I think it's going to be something good for the parents as well.
I'm good with it. I was just asking about the billing, because the one with the loading dock that's off the ground,
Yeah.
we paying $75,000 on Keating Drive to store records, and I think we could move them in there, because it's air conditioned, and we air conditioning garbage cans and water meters right now.
Well, I know we're point of order, but I agree with you 110% there.
Reverend Edwards?
Yeah, I know the group, Barry Terry. I've been to their facility, and we have used them for education over the years. A lot of DVDs, CDs. They got a great education program. I think it would help the school. My only problem, I wish it was on the East Bank, but I'm still vote for it.
Get one over there.
Any more comments from the table? Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously.
Thank you.
9-0. Next item, please.
I, an ordinance to amend the 5-year capital improvements plan, LRA, Consolidated Government Complex Project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Champagne.
I offer.
We have a motion by Mr. Champagne,
Second.
seconded by Reverend Edwards. Mr. Champagne.
Yeah, this ordinance is requesting additional community development block grant funding to asphalt around the multipurpose building and along the road. Bottom line is there's some funding out there that we're privy to that can only be spent on the government complex. And if we don't utilize it by June, it's lost.
And
What's the
We
blank?
have a fill in a blank with nothing to fill it in with on my end.
Yeah.
So on line 10, the.
Yeah, I don't know that, they don't have a number yet because they're trying to see how much grant money they can get. I know there was,
We can't adopt it without.
yeah, hold on.
Let's defer and
All right, we'll defer item I. Next item, please.
9J is deferred.
9J, you can withdraw.
It's going to withdraw.
You don't know how much you're going to get until you ask.
K, a resolution requesting the continued inclusion of the currently authorized Bayou Nor Ridge Restoration and Bay Adams Ridge Restoration projects in the state of Louisiana's 2023 Coastal Master Plan. Councilmember Jurisic.
I'll offer for Mr.
We have a motion by Mr. Conovich. I'll second it.
Mr. Helmers.
Gotcha.
After meeting with CPRA on the upcoming master plan, the 23 master plan, there were some changes made, some technical changes that kind of pushed our projects out to the side. But after some intense negotiations and a stroke of luck here and there, we do want to have this submitted as being on record for these projects to be put back in the master plan, because we are using our Restore Act money to engineer, design, and have this ready to go back into the QIPRA realm, where QIPRA is the federal sponsors that pay for most all of the restoration that happens. We've always been no skin in the game. These projects started probably 9 years ago. They kind of floundered around. I've worked on them for the last 4.5 to 5 years, working with CPRA and the designers to get this back in. So today, what we're doing on this resolution is asking that CPRA maintain these, keep it in that realm. We will finish the engineering and design, and we will go into the QIPRA vote, into the vote pool for construction. There's 3 phases. One, acceptance, the engineer and design, and then to go to actual construction. When we finish with these, which Bayou and Wire is probably 90%, 95% finished, when that's 95% finished, it'll go back into the voting realm of QIPRA. But it has to stay in the master plan to garner the support of the other federal agencies like EPA, NOAA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, CPRA. I mean, all those guys vote together, the Corps of Engineers, to continue this. The projects that we have going on right now in the parish, 2 are QIPRA funded and 1 is funded by CPRA. The Chania Ridge is being funded by CPRA. When that's finished, Grand Bayou, which is another 500 acres just next to that, will be funded by QIPRA. That's been approved this past year for construction. So we're getting a lot of traction movement, but we have to speak as one voice, and that's why I asked for this resolution. Both of these projects, we feel, will protect Port Sulphur, help enhance Empire, protect Bay Adams from continuously growing into the Gulf. We'll have that ridge. We have a lot of marsh creation and a lot of historic ridge that'll be put back. I have provided y'all with some packets and information of that stuff. If you have any questions.
Any public comments? Mr. Jurich.
Yes, Mr. Champagne, I'm tired of listening to your conversation over here. Your live mic. No, Mr. Helmut, so this is just to get it back into the 20, to the
This is a
2023 master
resolution
plan?
making sure they keep it back into the plan.
Okay,
We've
good.
had some intense discussions over the last 2 days. I'm waiting, I had a commitment that some of this funding may be lifted off of us for the Bay Adams, and CPRA will pick up the funding for the engineer and design. If they do that, which we're pretty sure they will, that'll help put some of our Restore dollars back in for other projects.
Okay, so it's not out the 2023 master plan.
No, because it hasn't been decided yet, but the public comment period ends at the end of, on the 25th. So we need to get this, once this is passed, I'll take that resolution, we'll submit it, and tomorrow I'll send y'all some templates of support for individual comments to where you can submit it directly to their websites, which the more comments, the more people we get engaged with it, the better chances and the stronger these both stay in there.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you, Mr. Helmers, for doing this work. This is, as you well knew, extremely important to our coast, and appreciate you doing all of that. And for our fellow councilmen, Mr. Jurich and Mr. Konovich, we're going to get them some color, because it's all nice color prints, and you can read it extremely well. So I'm going to get you guys some color printers now. Thank you, and I yield.
Any more comments from the table?
Is that a coloring book from Mr. Jurisic? I think you'd appreciate that. Something we can deal with.
Commissioner Schultz's color book.
Machines are open.
Children.
And the resolution passed 9-0.
Thank you.
Can I reconsider? No, I have to.
Do you?
Oyster stuff, possible issues with leases and stuff like that.
You would need a motion to reconsider the vote by which you passed, and since y'all all voted for it, anybody can make that motion?
We have a motion to reconsider by Ms. Jurich, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Motion to reconsider. Machines are open.
Maybe you said.
And the measure passes 9-0. We'll go back to that item, that resolution.
I'll offer.
I'll second it.
We have that resolution. We have a motion by Mr. Konovich, seconded by Mr. Newsom.
Machines are open.
The machines are open,
Thank y'all. Sorry, Chris.
and the measure passes 8-4, one abstention.
L, an ordinance pursuant to Section 280 of the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances to provide for the solicitation and engagement of a contract grant writer for Plaquemines Parish government by authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to solicit requests for qualifications or requests for proposals, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Jurisic.
So offered.
We have a motion by Mr. Jurich, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Mr. Jurich.
Plaquemines Parish government currently employs a grant administrator. However, due to the fiscal challenges the parish is facing, it would be beneficial to seek proposals from contractors to provide the services of a grant writer. This ordinance authorizes the parish president to advertise for proposals and/or qualifications to be submitted by interested contractors. Basically, what I would like to see happen is that we interview some certain grant writing firms that, instead of individual grant writers, I'm not looking to employ employ a grant writer. I'm looking to let them, find a firm that will work for the grant, and that's how they get paid per grant.
So you're sending this out for proposals?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any comments from the audience? Any more comments from the table? Mr. Konovich.
Yes, this is long overdue. I brought some people to the last administration. Most grants have a line in it that'll pay for the grant writers. So it won't be coming out of our pocket.
Reverend Edwards.
We're saying that.
Can you
Pull your mic, please.
I'm sorry. The grant person we have now can't do this?
We don't have a grant writer. She's a grant administrator.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mr. Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you answered my question, but would the payment of this contract, is it a 50-50 split, 70-20, or do we know?
But what Mitch and what Havo is saying is, I'm one that's like, you eat what you kill. We'll find the best qualified writer, and then they go out, they get the grant, and they know that they may administer the project and the program. That's what we're looking for.
Well,
There are folks out there, there's firms that are willing to go get the money, but they just need to be assured somehow or another that at the end of the day, that they will benefit by going and getting that money.
Correct. I do think whoever does this should get paid for their services. Will this, any more legislation, would this come back to this council? Or is this?
Yeah, you would have to approve it.
Improve.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. McCarty?
I like the idea of hiring a firm rather than an individual, because a firm will have people who can specialize in different areas. I'd also like to know if we can have access to something like Foundation Center. It's similar to grants.gov, but it allows you to do research on possible grants. And I know that the New Orleans Foundation offers it free, but only for a 24-hour period within a month. So maybe we can work something out with them as a government. And by the way, I used to write grants, and it's now illegal to give a grant writer a percentage of the grant, so we won't.
It's not, I'm not talking
really?
about a percentage of the
Right,
grant.
I just wanted to, for information purposes, but we can pay them for their services. And sometimes we get the money to pay them out of the grant.
The grant has a line item in it that pays for grant writers.
Yep.
Any more comments from the table? Administration, machines is open. And the measure passes unanimously, 9-0. Next item, please.
9N, a resolution authorizing and directing the parish president or his designee to work with the federal government in an effort to have Fort Jackson placed in the national park system and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Councilmember Kotnovich.
We have a motion by Mr. Konovich.
I'll offer and ask for unanimous second.
Agreed.
Yes, this is the National Park did the study on the fort, and it passed everything, and what was going on in the nation at the time, they didn't want to take a fort into the national park, so every politician said, wait till after the election. Well, it's after the election now, and, I've been talking to them, but if we get more voices going to them, it might push them to get it in the park system. And if we have a national park down there, the next hurricane, they can't close the road on us.
I don't know about that.
Any public comments? Any more comments from the table? Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously, 9-0.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
10, approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2023 regular meeting.
We have a motion by Dr. Gui, seconded by Mr. Konovich. Machines are open. And the measure passes unanimously, 9-0.
11, new business. 11A, introduction of resolutions wherein suspension is being sought.
That is withdrawn because we
Right.
did an introduction on it today.
Right.
B, District 9 update, Councilmember Kotnovich. Discussion about Bureau sewage.
Yeah, I brought this up to Ken last time. He said he didn't know nothing about it. And I've been getting calls again this week that they backing up again, and talked to Severn Trent, and they said they waiting on Ken Dugas.
Briefly, in the airport today, I looked at an email, but all I saw was pictures, and then I had to move on. I know they're pulling sludge out of these tanks, and.
But that's the
they
sewer
must be
plant.
having holding boxes or something, I mean.
But that's the sewer plant. This is the sewage lines running through Sunrise and Burris.
Okay.
There's blockages in the lines, and one of them's going into filling a ditch. Then you got to pump it around the break or the.
I will get with Robert Morgan when on my way up to catch the ferry.
Thank you.
Item C withdrawn.
D, discussion on utility digging along Highway 23, Councilmember Schultz.
I already talked to Jeff earlier today, but with the utility digging, I guess Cox, they hit 3 spots. And I just want to make sure that we are somehow going to request reimbursement from them for all the labor and the water use. And if we need to do something about permits, where they're required to do permits, let me know, because this isn't the first time. It was AT&T last year hitting gas lines and everything. We need to control what is under our control.
Without a whole lot of discussion, yes.
Yeah, so I'll get with you. Like I said, I talked to Jeff. That's about it.
Motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Mr. Conovich, seconded by Mr. Newsom. Machines are open. And the measure passes 9-0. We have adjournment at 6:28.